completion of the forelimb bones of appendicular skeleton. Next, that is the hind limb bones. You know that total number of hind limb bones are the 60 bones, and there are two hind limbs, so right and left, so each hind limb consists 30 bones. Now these are the different regions of the hind limb, while these are the bones present in the different region. First region, that is the thigh. Thigh is the region lies between the hip to the knee region. It is termed as a thigh, and thigh region consists a single bone termed as a femur. You know that femur is the longest and strongest bone of body. Longest and strongest bone of our body, it is the femur. Then in knee region we can observe single sesamoid bone termed as a patella. It is also termed as a kneecap. In calf region or in shank region we can observe tibia and fibula. These are the two bones. Then ankle region, in ankle region there is presence of 7 tarsal bones. In foot region we can observe 5 metatarsals, while toes made up by the phalanges, big toe, hallux, and remaining are the 4 toes, which consist 12, and big toe hallux consists 2, so it is 14. So 14, 5, 7, 2, 1, 1. It is total 30 bones in right hind limb, 30 bones in left hind limbs, and total 60 bones present in hind limb. Now we want to focus on the details of each bone. Now first, that is the femur and tibia, fibula. These are the long bones present in the hind limb. First, concentrate on the femur. You know that femur is the longest and strongest bone of our body, that is the femur. Femur bone present in thigh region. Like other long bones, it also have two distinct regions, that is the epiphysis and diaphysis. Two regions, epiphysis and diaphysis. Epiphysis are the lateral ends of the bones, where diaphysis form the shaft of the bones. So there are three regions, that is anterior region, head, anterior region, middle region, shaft, and posterior region. When we focus on the anterior region consists two components, that is first head and second, that is the neck. Head is the anterior spherical structure present at anterior side, and this head articulates with the acetabulum cavity of the pelvic girdle, so, and forms the ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint. It easily dislocates this head from the acetabulum cavity. At the base of the head we can observe the neck, and neck associated with the two tubular outgrowth, that is the greater trochanter and lesser trochanter. This greater trochanter and lesser trochanter present at the anterior side. So the head makes the angle with shaft, it is 120 degree is the angle. Now middle region is the shaft. Shaft consists the nutrient foramen through which the blood vessels and nerves enters into the bones, because at center we can observe bone marrow cavity, and there is presence of osteon, or that is the Haversian canal system. So nutrient foramen present at the center of the shaft, while the posterior region have the two processes, that is lateral condyle and medial condyles. This lateral condyle and medial condyles articulates with the lateral condyle and medial condyles of the tibia, and both structures are supported by a bone termed as a patella. Patella, it is also termed as a kneecap. It is termed as a kneecap. Patella, it is a sesamoid bone. It is most important point. It is sesamoid. Sesamoid bone means sesamoid bone is the bone which is made up by the ossification of tendon. Means this bone does not consist the Haversian system or osteon. It is made up by the ossification of tendon. So it is sesamoid bone. Patella present at the anterior region of the lateral medial condyles of the femur, as well as lateral and medial condyle of the tibia. So this is about the femur. Now second two bones present in the shank region, also it is calf region. So calf region consists the tibia and fibula. This is the large bone, that is tibia, and second, that is fibula. Tibia and fibula get connected with each other by a membrane termed as the interosseous membrane, and forms the tibiofibular joint. Both means like femur. it is also consists three regions, that is anterior region, posterior region and middle region is the shaft. Middle region consists the nutrient foramen through which blood vessels and nerves enters into the bones. Now at anterior side we can observe the medial condyle and lateral condyles. These condyles articulates with the lateral condyle and medial condyles of the femur supported by patella and form the joint hinge joint. Which joint? Hinge joint. While posterior side we can observe two processes, that is lateral malleolus process and medial malleolus process. This lateral malleolus and medial malleolus process articulates with the tarsal bones and forms again, that is the hinge joint. So these are the tibia and fibula, two bones present in calf region. Now next, that is input region, there are tarsals, metatarsals and phalanges. Now first tarsals, total number of tarsals are the 7 tarsals bones, and these 7 tarsals bone present in 3 region, that is the proximal, middle and anterior. Proximal region consists 2 bones, that is the calcaneus and talus. Calcaneus, it is also termed as a heel bone. पायाची टाच जी आहे ह्या टाचेमध्ये असणारं बोन म्हणजे कॅल्कॅनियस आहे, सो इट इज टर्म्ड एज अ heel bone. There is presence of talus bone. Middle bone, it is navicular, it's somewhat boat shaped bone termed as a navicular, and at anterior side we can observe 3 cuneiform and 1 cuboid. So total number of bones are 7, 1 cuboid, 3 cuneiform, 1 navicular, 1 talus and 1 calcaneus. These are the 7 tarsal bones present in ankle region. In foot region we can observe the 5 metatarsals, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 metatarsals, while our toes is made up by 14 phalanges. Big toe hallux consists 2 and remaining each toe consists 3. So these are the 12 plus 2 means it is 14 phalanges present in the toes. So these are the hind limb bones. These are the hind limb bones. So 30 hind limb bones present in right hind limb, 30 hind limb bones present in the left hind limb, 30 plus 30 it forms the 60. These 60 hind limbs, like that 30 forelimb bones present in right forelimbs, 30 forelimb bones present in the left forelimbs, and total from the 60 forelimbs. So it is about the limb bones. Now next part, that is the girdle bones. These girdle bones is the second component of the appendicular skeleton. Total number of girdle bones are the 6. Total number of girdle bones are the 6, but it forms the 2 type of girdles. Now clear the term, what is girdle? What is girdle? Girdle is the bony part connect limb bones with axial skeleton. What is girdle? Girdle is the bony part connect limb bones with axial skeleton. Means bones are present in forelimbs and hind limb get connected with the axial skeleton by girdles. There are 2 type of girdles, pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. First, pectoral girdles present in shoulder region connect the forelimb bones with axial skeleton, while pelvic girdle present in hip region connect the hind limb bones with the axial skeleton. So there are 2 girdles, pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. Pectoral girdle lies in shoulder region and it is made up by 2 bones, that is scapula and clavicle, that is scapula and clavicle, while pelvic girdle connect the hind limb bones with axial skeleton lies in hip region and it is made up by 2 innominate bone or pelvic bone, or it is termed as a coxal bone. So pelvic girdle is made up by 2 pelvic bone or innominate bone or coxal bones. Now concentrate on the each pectoral girdle. Right and left pectoral girdle consists 2 parts, scapula and clavicle. Now scapula is somewhat triangular plate-like structure present at the dorsolateral side of thoracic region. Thoracic region ला मागच्या बाजूला हे triangular plate आहे, that is the scapula. This scapula lies from 2nd thoracic vertebrae to 7th thoracic vertebrae. Exact position of this scapula, it lies at between 2nd thoracic to 7th thoracic. It have the 2 borders. This is termed as a lateral border and this is termed as a medial border. Medial border associated with vertebral column, where lateral border present at towards the limb side. Now this lateral border have one cavity termed as a glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity is the cavity where head of humerus bone articulates and forms the ball and socket joint. So glenoid cavity is good example of ball and socket joint. Now the scapula at anterior side have two processes, that is coracoid process and the acromion process. This coracoid process associated with the coracoid, while the acromion process, this acromion process articulates with the clavicle and forms the claviculo-acromion joint. You know that clavicle bone present in the shoulder region, so acromio-clavicular joint. So this is about the scapula, and middle region provide the attachment surface for the muscle, shoulder muscles, which is helpful in the muscle movement. Then that is the clavicle. Clavicle, it is somewhat S-shape bone present in the neck region. It connect the scapula with the sternum. Scapula get connected with sternum by this bone. It is the clavicle bone. So clavicle makes connection with acromion and form the acromioclavicular joint, while the clavicle makes the connection with the sternum and form this sternoclavicular joint. हा एक रेफरन्स सर्क्युलेशन मध्ये ही लक्षात ठेवावा लागेल. सर्क्युलेशन मध्ये आपण आर्टिफिशियल पेसमेकर पाहणार आहोत. आर्टिफिशियल पेसमेकर एस ए नोड म्हणजे पेसमेकर हा सेट केला जातो. तो पेसमेकर हा क्लॅव्हिकल बोनच्या खालच्या बाजूला सेट केला जातो. सो दिस इज दी pectoral girdle made up by scapula and clavicle. Now second girdle, that is the pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle present in hip region. It is made up by two pelvic bone or innominate bone or coxal bone. When we focus on the single pelvic girdle, pelvic bone, it have three parts. Anterior fan like portion, it is termed as the ilium. Second part, that is the ischium, and third part is the pubis. So this pelvic bone is made up by three components, that is ilium, ischium and pubis. Anterior side, it is a fan like structure, ilium, which have the lines, that is the gluteal lines, and this ilium articulates with the sacrum bone, and forms the joint. Here it is sacroiliac joint. It forms the joint. It is termed as a sacroiliac joint, most important. Now at the base we can observe the ischium. Ischium is the posterior region of the pelvic bone, and this ischium have the outgrowth. Here it is termed as a ischial tuberosity. This outgrowth receives the weight while we are sitting. जेव्हा आपण बसलेलो असतो तेव्हा बॉडीचं पूर्ण वेट ज्या आउटग्रोथ वरती रिसीव केलं जातं ते आहे ischial tuberosity, is the part of ischium. While this ischium have the one foramen, it is termed as the obturator foramen. The size of obturator foramen is different in male and female. In male it is large and oval size, while when we focus in female it is small and triangular. Means on the basis of nature of obturator foramen we can identify it is the bone of male or female. This is the obturator foramen. The function performed by obturator foramen transmit the nerves and blood vessels into the limbs. At the junction, now third part, above this ischium we can observe the pubis. This pubis is the middle region, and this one pubis communicate with the another pubis of the ilium bones, and it is get connected by again the pubic symphysis. So this is the pubic symphysis. So pubic symphysis connect the two pubis bones of the two pelvic bones, and at the junction of ilium, ischium and pubis we can observe the cavity, and this cavity is termed as a acetabulum, where head of femur bone articulates, So it forms the ball and socket joint. So acetabulum is the cavity present in the pelvic bone, glenoid cavity present in the pectoral girdle. So this is the girdles. There are two girdles, pelvic girdle and pectoral girdle, the girdles which connect the limb bones with the axial skeleton. In this way we can complete here the human skeletal system. Once again I will repeat it. Human skeletal system is made up by 206 bones. Out of 206 bones, 80 bones forms the axial skeleton, while 126 bones form the appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton means the bones which lies at the center of the body, and it forms the axial skeleton, and it is again consists several regions, that is the skull, ear ossicle, head bone, then vertebral column, thoracic cage. Skull bone is consist 22 bones, ear ossicles are 6, single head bone, then vertebral column consists the total 26 bone, while the thoracic cage consists the 25 bones. So in this way total 80 bones form the axial skeleton, while appendicular skeleton made up by the 126 bone, out of which 6 bones form the girdles, while 120 bones form the limb bones. There are two types of girdle, pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle, while there are two types of limbs, forelimbs and the hind limbs. Forelimb bones there are 60, hind limb bones are the 60 altogether. Now this entire skeletal system perform the several function. We have already discussed this function. First, it gives proper shape to the body. Second, it provides protection to the delicate organs, like brain is protected by cranium, heart is protected by thoracic cage. It is the storage organ of the different substances, minerals, fats. Then it is involved in the process of hemopoiesis. Bones are helpful in the speech, bones are helpful in the breathing process. So these are the different functions performed by skeletal system. Now second component of the locomotion, that is the joints. The branch which deals with the all aspects of joints or study the all aspects of joints, it is termed as arthrology. Now what is joint? Joint, it is a place where two or more bones connected with each other by some means of other. Joint, it is a place where two or more bones connected with each other by some means of other. In simple word, this is the definition of joints. In the act of locomotion, joints acts as a fulcrum. Joints acts as a fulcrum. Now we want to focus on the details of the joints. Generally, joints are of different types. Joints are classified based on the degree of flexibility or movement permitted by this joint. There are three different types of joint. Generally, immovable joint, slightly movable joint and freely movable joint. So immovable joint does not allow any movement, so it is immovable joint. Slightly movable joint, it permit a slight movement, so it is slightly movable joint, while the freely movable joint permit free movement, so it is termed as a freely movable joint. Generally in immovable joint, connecting material here it is the connecting material is the fibers, so it is termed as a fibrous joint. While in slightly movable joint, there is a connecting material is a cartilage, so it is also termed as a cartilaginous joints. While in the freely movable joint, connecting material is the synovial fluid, so it is also termed as a synovial joints or synovial joints. So fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint and synovial joint. Now when we use the biological term for each joint, generally immovable joint, fibrous joint, also termed as a synarthrosis. It is termed as synarthrosis. Slightly movable joint, cartilaginous joint, is termed as a amphiarthrosis. While freely movable joint, synovial joint, it is termed as a diarthrosis. So these are the basic different types of joints. Now we want to go in details of joint by preparing one diagrammatic presentation, that is joint, basic three types of joint, that is the synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis and diarthrosis. Synarthrosis joint connected by fibers, so fibrous joint, it does not allow any movement, so it is immovable joint. Amphiarthrosis, it connected by cartilaginous joint bones, it allows slight movement, so it is slightly movable joint. While in diarthrosis, connecting material is the synovial fluid, so it is synovial joint, and it allows free movement, so it is freely movable joint. In synarthrosis, we can further have three different types, that is suture joint, syndesmosis and gymphosis. So suture joints means here connected by the sutures. Good example, that is cranium bones. cranium bones get connected with each other by a joint termed as a suture joint. Now this suture joint further divides into different joint, that is the lap joint, bud joint, scarp joint and serrate joint. These are the different type of joint, that is serrate joint. Good example, that is cranium bones. Then that is the syndesmosis. Syndesmosis, it is the joint present between the radius ulna. So radio-ulnar joint, it is termed as a syndesmosis type of joint. Also termed as a tibia-fibular joint, it is the syndesmosis, because connecting material here it is the fibers. Now last, that is gomphosis. This gomphosis also termed as a peg and socket joint, peg and socket joint, because peg like component of one bone fixed into the socket like component of another bone. An example, that is the thicodont condition. You know that we have already discussed in the nutrition, that is thicodont condition means tooth embedded in the bony sockets of jaw. Tooth embedded into the bony sockets of jaw connected by periodontide ligament. So it is termed as a gomphosis or peg and socket joint. So synarthrosis are of three types: suture joint, syndesmosis and gomphosis. Now amphiarthrosis, connecting material is cartilaginous, that is synchondrosis. Synchondrosis, where we can observe generally long bones have the two parts, that is the diaphysis and second, that is the epiphysis. So diaphysis get connected with the epiphysis by a plate. It is termed as a epiphyseal plate, by a epiphyseal plate, and this epiphyseal plate shows slight movement during the development. So it is the slightly movable joint or amphiarthrosis. Example, that is the joint lies present between the epiphysis and diaphysis connected by epiphyseal plate, that is synchondrosis. Then symphysis. These symphysis are of two types here, that is the intervertebral disc and second, that is pubic symphysis. So that is intervertebral disc and pubic symphysis. This intervertebral disc present between the two vertebra connected with by centrum. So in between the two centrum there is intervertebral disc. Due to presence of intervertebral disc, we can bend forward or backward, so it allows this slight movement. So it is symphysis. And pubic symphysis. Pubic symphysis is a fibrous cartilaginous joint present between the two pubic bones of pelvic girdle in female, and on the action of the oxytocin or several hormone, it expand, means it shows slight movement. So pubic symphysis and intervertebral disc, example of symphysis. So synchondrosis and symphysis are the types of amphiarthrosis. While diarthrosis, it is also termed as a synovial joints. The most important peculiarity, first concentrate on the typical synovial joints. The structure present between the each joint is same, that is, suppose this is the one articulating bone. This is the one articulating bone, and this is the second articulating bone. Each articulating bone have its articulating surface termed as a articulating surface, and it is made up by hyaline cartilage. These articulating bones connected with each other by a synovial membrane. This synovial membrane externally covered by ligament, and this synovial membrane, in between these two articulating bones we can observe the cavity. It is termed as a synovial cavity. This synovial cavity filled with the fluid, that is synovial fluid. So synovial cavity present in each joint, this synovial cavity filled with the synovial fluid, and it allow the free movement. This synovial fluid, it is the mucus secreting alkaline in nature and consists some component like proteins as well as hyaluronidase like substances. So this is the typical structure. Now diarthrosis, there are 6 different type of diarthrosis, that is the pivot joint or pivot joint, ball and socket joint, hinge joint, condyloid joint, gliding joint or planar joint, and saddle joint. Pivot joint we have already discussed, it is also termed as atlantoaxial joint. It is termed as atlantoaxial joint, means odontoid process acts as a pivot which articulates with the foramen of the atlas. So odontoid process of axis articulates with the atlas and form the pivot joint. It allow the movement like no, so it is also termed as a no joint. So this is the movement permitted by this pivot joint. Next, ball and socket joint. Ball like component of one bone fixed into the socket like structure of another bone. For example, this is the head of humerus, articulates into the glenoid cavity of the scapula. So ball and socket joint example, that is shoulder joint, and second, that is the hip joint. So shoulder joint and hip joint are the example of ball and socket joint. It allow the free movement. So shoulder joint, which ball and socket free movement, it is also termed as a balling joint because it is allow the free movement. So that is ball and socket joint. Then hinge joint. It works in only one plane, because in ball and socket joint we have observed the multi-axial movement, while in hinge joint that is the uniaxial movement. And this hinge joint, good example, that is elbow joint and that is the knee joint. These are the most common example of the hinge joint which allow the uniaxial movement. Then condyloid joint between present in wrist, that is the base of radius articulate with carpels bones in, that is wrist region, forms the condyloid joint. So condyloid joint allowed the bidirectional movement, forward, backward, anterior, posterior. So it is condyloid joint. Then gliding joint or planar joint. This gliding joint or planar joint present, good example, that is the wrist joint. In the wrist joint we can observe the free movement of the wrist, means carpels bone slides over each other and form the joint, that is the gliding joint. While last, that is the saddle joint. That is the metacarpals of thumb articulate with trapezium of carpels. So metacarpal of the thumb articulates with the trapezium bone of the carpels and forms the saddle joint, and this saddle joint allow the free movement. Our thumb is opposable, and this opposable thumb is due to this saddle joint which allow the free movement of the thumb. So these are the 6 different type of diarthrosis, that is pivot joint, ball and socket joint, hinge joint, condyloid joint, gliding joint, saddle joint. आपण हे सगळे जॉइंट बोन स्टडी करताना स्टडी केलेत, त्यामुळे पुन्हा बोन्स रिपीट करण्याची गरज नाही. बोन स्टडी करताना हे तिथे कोरिलेट करावे म्हणजे मग लक्षात येतात. पण हा चार्ट जो आहे तो चार्ट लक्षातच राहिला पाहिजे, पाठच झाला पाहिजे की ज्याच्यामुळे हे सगळे जॉइंटचे प्रकार येतील. या पद्धतीने आपण हा सेकंड बीट कंप्लीट केलेला आहे जॉइंट्स.